Remember tariffs? Those taxes on imported goods that dominated headlines just a few years ago? They were supposed to be the magic bullet for American manufacturing, a way to level the playing field and bring jobs back home. The idea was straightforward. Slap extra costs on foreign products, make them less attractive, and suddenly, American-made goods would be the obvious choice for consumers and businesses alike. The hope was that this would spark a renaissance in U.S. factories, with assembly lines roaring back to life and Made in USA labels filling store shelves. Politicians promised a new era of prosperity, and for a moment it seemed possible. The first and biggest target: China, the world's manufacturing powerhouse, churning out everything from electronics to clothing at breakneck speed. But global companies are nothing if not adaptable. Instead of coming back to the US, many simply shifted their operations to other countries: Vietnam, India, Mexico, places where labor was still cheap and tariffs didn't yet apply. Billions of dollars were poured into building new factories, retraining workers, and creating entirely new supply chains. It was a logistical feat, and for a while it looked like a clever workaround. For many companies, this was a massive gamble, betting on stability in a world where trade rules seemed to change overnight. But with profits and survival on the line, it felt like the only option. Fast forward to late 2025, and the landscape has shifted yet again. New tariffs are being announced, and the targets are no longer just China. Now, those same tariffs are hitting Vietnam, India, Mexico, the very countries companies move to in hopes of escaping the trade war crossfire. Suddenly, nowhere feels safe. For businesses, it's become a never-ending scramble, a chaotic game of economic whack-a-mole where every solution is temporary and every move is met with new obstacles. What was once a promise of stability and growth has turned into a global bait and switch, leaving companies and workers alike wondering where the next blow will land. Leaving China wasn't just about tariffs. It was about rising costs, stricter regulations, and pandemic risks. Companies realized having all their manufacturing in one place was dangerous. Vietnam became the new hotspot for electronics and apparel, while Mexico attracted automakers with its proximity and trade deals. India, with its huge workforce, also drew in global brands. This wasn't a minor shift, it was a fundamental rewiring of the global economy. Apple ramped up iPhone production in India. Nike and Adidas moved more sneaker manufacturing to Vietnam. Billions were spent on new factories and supply chains, all in the name of diversification. The narrative was clear. Leaving China was smart, safe, and patriotic, or so everyone thought. Just as companies were finally settling into their new homes, feeling a sense of relief after months, sometimes years, of planning, relocating, and investing in brand new factories across Southeast Asia, a new challenge was quietly brewing on the horizon. The Trump administration suddenly dropped a bombshell, announcing sweeping new tariffs on Vietnam, India, and Mexico. These were the very countries that had just become the new manufacturing hubs for countless American and international companies seeking to escape the trade war with China. Imagine the shock. You've just moved your entire operation to Vietnam, invested millions in new equipment, hired and trained a local workforce, and then, overnight, you wake up to find a 25% tariff slapped on your products. The very move that was supposed to save your business now threatens to sink it. The strategy that was meant to protect companies from the fallout of the US-China trade war now left them exposed to a whole new set of risks. Boardrooms filled with uncertainty, and workers on the factory floor paused, unsure of what the future would hold. Billions of dollars had been invested in new infrastructure, supply chains, and relationships, only for these companies to face the same punishing taxes they had tried so hard to escape. It was a cruel twist of fate. Economists and business leaders alike were left scratching their heads. The logic seemed upside down. Why punish countries that were actually helping the US diversify away from China and reduce its dependence on a single supplier? This wasn't just a minor policy tweak. It was a seismic shift in the global trade landscape. Ports that had been bustling with activity suddenly faced delays and disruptions. Factory machinery that had just started humming was now grinding to a halt. No country was safe from tariffs anymore. The message was clear. The rules of global trade had changed, and anyone could be the next target. The administration's focus had broadened far beyond China, and businesses found themselves caught in the crossfire, scrambling to adapt to a world where yesterday's safe haven could become today's battleground. Companies that had followed all the rules, invested in new markets, and played by the book now faced a crisis they never saw coming. The sense of security they once felt was gone. Predictable trade routes and stable markets were replaced by chaos and volatility. Uncertainty became the new normal, and every shipment, every deal, was suddenly at risk. The era of global stability had ended overnight. For companies around the world, the future was now a question mark, and the only certainty was change. These tariffs don't just hit boardrooms, they hit your wallet. Apple's iPhones made in India now face new taxes, forcing the company to choose between higher prices or lower profits. Apparel brands like Gap and H&M, which moved to Vietnam and India, now see costs rise again. Smaller businesses without deep pockets are especially vulnerable. A sudden tariff can wipe out their profits. For consumers, it means higher prices on everything from power tools to bed sheets. The variety of products shrinks as companies drop risky imports. The promise of global trade, more choice, lower prices, is fading. Instead, we get fewer options and higher costs. The trade war's impact is personal, not just political. Why target countries like Vietnam and Mexico? The administration says it's about stopping tariff circumvention. Many companies didn't fully leave China, they just moved final assembly elsewhere. 95% of a product might be made in China, then finished in Vietnam to dodge tariffs. This transshipment loophole became common, so the US hit new countries with tariffs. But global supply chains are messy, parts come from everywhere. It's nearly impossible to separate Chinese from Vietnamese products. The US response? Broad tariffs, punishing both cheaters and rule followers. Every time companies move, the target shifts. Bangladesh, Indonesia, the Philippines could be next. This constant whack-a-mole creates chaos and instability. Instead of bringing jobs home, the strategy is fueling global uncertainty. The intended stability is now global confusion. These tariffs are part of a much bigger story, one that stretches far beyond simple taxes on imported goods. It's a story about the US dollar, the enduring allure of gold, and the shifting balance of global power. To truly understand what's happening, we need to zoom out and look at the forces shaping the world economy. For decades, the US dollar has been the undisputed king of global trade. Its dominance has given the United States immense influence over international markets, allowing it to set the rules and shape the flow of money and goods around the world. Almost every major transaction, from oil to electronics, has been priced in dollars, reinforcing America's economic power. But now, unpredictable tariffs and aggressive trade tactics are making other countries nervous. These sudden policy shifts create uncertainty, forcing nations to rethink their reliance on the dollar and the US-led system. The world is watching, and many are starting to question whether the old rules still apply. Nations like China and Russia are actively searching for alternatives, a trend known as de-dollarization. They're not alone. Other emerging economies are joining the movement, seeking to reduce their exposure to US financial pressure and build a more independent future. More and more countries are now trading in their own currencies, bypassing the dollar entirely. This shift is subtle but significant, as it chips away at the dollar's dominance and signals a new era in global finance. Every new tariff, every new trade barrier, gives these countries another reason to accelerate their plans. The ripple effects are felt not just in boardrooms but on factory floors and in everyday business decisions around the world. Enter gold, the ancient store of value. Central banks, especially in China and India, are buying record amounts of gold as a hedge against uncertainty. For them, gold is a safe haven, a way to protect their economies from the volatility of currency wars and shifting alliances. As trust in the dollar wavers, the price of gold climbs higher. Investors and governments alike are watching these trends, seeing gold as a barometer of global confidence, or the lack of it, in the current system. The trade war isn't just about jobs or tariffs, it's about who gets to write the rules of the global economy. It's a contest for influence, for control, and ultimately, for the future direction of world trade. Ironically, the very tariffs meant to protect US interests may be speeding up the world's move away from the dollar. As countries adapt, new trade routes and alliances are forming, reshaping the global landscape in ways that could last for generations. It's a high-stakes gamble. In trying to project strength and protect its own industries, the US might be undermining the very foundation of its global power. The consequences of these decisions will echo far beyond today's headlines. The global chessboard is shifting, and the outcome is more uncertain than ever. Every move is watched, every strategy analyzed, as nations position themselves for what comes next. The real game is much bigger than tariffs or trade disputes. It's about the future of economic power, the rules that will govern global commerce, and who will lead in the decades to come. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the world is watching. For CEOs, the old playbook, find the cheapest place to make stuff, is dead. Now every decision is a gamble. Will your new factory be tariffed next year? Some try moving again, but it's costly and risky. Reshoring to the US is slow and expensive. Skilled labor and supplier networks take years to rebuild. Nearshoring to friendly countries seemed safe, until Mexico got hit. Now no partner feels immune. Companies are forced into defensive strategies, absorbing costs, shrinking margins, and building complex, redundant supply chains. Efficiency is out, survival is in. The result? Higher costs and less certainty for everyone. For families, tariffs mean inflation, plain and simple. Companies pass the cost to you, raising prices on TVs, shoes, and more. It's not a one-time hike, it's a steady squeeze on your budget. Your paycheck doesn't keep up, and your standard of living slips. Tariffs on raw materials also make US-made goods pricier. Scarcity grows as companies drop products that are too costly to import. Fewer choices, higher prices, and even shortages become the new normal. The policies meant to help American workers end up hurting consumers. Every swipe of your credit card is a reminder of the trade war's cost. Economic strength feels distant when your wallet is weaker. So, what can you do? For businesses, diversification is now survival. Multiple suppliers, multiple regions. Political risk matters as much as cost. Friendshoring is key, but even allies aren't immune. Automation and local manufacturing may be safer bets despite higher costs. For consumers, flexibility is crucial. Watch prices, switch brands, and plan big purchases ahead. Build a small emergency fund to buffer against price shocks. The stable, predictable world of global trade is gone. The future is fragmented and uncertain. Resilience is your best asset. Stay informed, stay flexible, and prepare for change.